Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. So today I'm going to give you an update on basically what's has happened with my car. It hasn't really gone right since I put this new motor in. It's had lots of things wrong with it. Don't even know where to start. But I'll explain all those things to you shortly and let you all know what I've been experiencing with this Mazdaspeed over the last month or so since our last video. So where I finished off in the last video, I just basically did a startup of the first time with the rebuilt motor. And obviously the bigger turbo and all that. So when I first started it and I took it for a quick drive, I noticed that my clutch pedal was pretty much at the bottom of the floor. Like it was moved it like ever so slightly and it was engaged. So I had to sort that out. We tried rebleeding the clutch. That didn't really go to plan and it was not working properly. The pedal just kept being real soft and spongy and sticking to the floor and like not working whatsoever. I was thinking maybe it might have been an issue when I put my clutch back in. Maybe I did something wrong because it's a self-adjusting clutch, but we decided to back bleed, so we bleeded it from the slave cylinder all the way back up to the reservoir tank, which actually worked. So I don't know why it wasn't working when we were trying to bleed it the normal way, but for some reason it worked when we back bleed it. Also, my car was overheating, which the gauge was getting quite hot when I first took it for its first drive, which I don't think it was overheating because I felt the hose and it was like quite cold. I think it just had like an airlock in the system. I started it up and took the radiator cap off and let it run. So I've used this infrared thermometer and it has like a little trigger on it. You pull the trigger and you point it at whatever part you want. So I was checking my heater core lines and the top radiator hose and the bottom radiator hose, and I was just going around checking all the temperatures. Obviously the back ones were getting hotter first than the front ones, but I waited for the thermostat to fully open up, and then eventually all the hoses all became up to the same temperature, and then I just turned the car off, let it sort of cooled down, and then I just topped up the radiator with some more water. So that sorted that out, so the car's not overheating anymore. I also had a slight coolant leak, so where the oil filter screws into, it has some coolant lines going up to the top of it, plugs into the top and then comes back out just to try and cool down that component. And I had a slight little leak there, so I just had to just readjust the hose and put the clamp back on it properly. So that was real minor, so that was not an issue. I had some aftermarket wiring in there obviously for my halo headlights, and when I pulled the motor out, the wire was hardwired in, so I just cut the wires, so I had to rejoin those back up. I've actually put some crimping terminals on it, so it's easy to remove if I need to do it again. If I need to pull the headlights out or something, I don't have to cut the wire. Yeah, so I've also plumbed up both of my catch cans. So I've obviously got the first catch can coming from the PCV valve going through the catch can and back to the intake manifold, and then other catch cans coming out of the breather, out of the rocker cover, and going back into the intake. When I got the catch cans, I didn't have enough hose to completely finish up the second catch can, so I brought another 2 meters of hose, and then I could hook it up to the catch can. Both catch cans are in, and then obviously, yeah, I'll put the bumper back on, the bonnet, air-inks all back together. Just before I ran the motor in, the car was behaving sort of very weird at times. Like you'll drive along and then all of a sudden it like starts misfiring and doesn't run right, and it's running real rough and keeps stalling on you, and it was a bit of a weird one. I didn't really know what was going on. Obviously when I put the new rebuilt motor in the car, I put a brand new set of 1 step colder NGK plugs, and the car kept misfiring, like it kept dropping cylinder number 3. And I pulled out the spark plug on the third cylinder, and it was always like dripping wet on fuel. So I didn't know what was going on there. It was a bit weird. So I ended up putting another brand new set of plugs in it. And then I also noticed that when I first put the first set of plugs in, that I must have damaged them putting them in. Yeah, so these were my first set of NGKs. And in here is one of the plugs. But if you look at this, it's all been cracked. That's like probably one of the better ones. Yeah, this one here is a better example. So you can see there's quite a big nasty crack in it. It was a bit weird. I don't know what actually happened to the plugs. Like I had them in there, they're only in there for like a week or so. You can see that they are running really rich. I think I must have over tightened them, or when I was tightening them up, I sort of nipped them over a little bit, which cracked like the porcelain on it. So that's probably why the car was partly misfiring and had all the issues that I had. So I chucked a brand new set of plugs in it, which definitely did help, but every now and then it keeps still dropping number 3 cylinder, and I didn't know what was going on. I did a bit of research online, and someone told me that it could be part of the wiring loom for the coils, that they might have a broken wire in it, and when you're driving it or something, it's just moving it and breaking it and stopping the coil pack working on that third cylinder. So I ended up sourcing and finding a a second-hand wiring loom. I replaced that thinking it was a wiring issue. Doing that, I also noticed that my coolant temp sensor was a bit faulty and a bit broken, because one of these plugs here go to the coolant temp sensor, which is right down beside the intake, but you couldn't see that from the top. Like if we look here, so there's that wiring loom that I was just talking about before that I replaced. It obviously plugs in down there and plugs in all through up here. But the one wire for the coolant temperature sensor is all the way down in here. So you can't actually see it until you remove the full intake and battery and all that out. And when I did that to replace that wiring loom, I noticed that the coolant temp sensor was broken. It was after hours and I didn't have another coolant temp sensor, so I've had to put it all back together with the broken sensor. And then the next day I went and brought a new coolant temp sensor and chucked it in, and since then the car's been going really good. The sensor was absolutely destroyed. Like, it had a plug in, obviously screws into the engine, and it has like a little plug on the end, and those plugs has wires that go down and tells you the temperature, but all those wires, those pins have basically pulled out. So yeah, it wouldn't have been reading correctly. The car didn't know if the car was cold or warm, if it needed like the choke on, basically the automatic choke, to make it rev up a bit more. That's probably why when the car was cold I was having issues, because the temperature sensor didn't know how hot and cold the car was reading. So yeah, I replaced that and replaced that wiring loom, because I just ruled both of those out, and ever since then the car's been going really good. It had no issues whatsoever on it. And then obviously with the new engine I had to run it in for 500 k's or more, so I had some running in oil in there. I had to take it for a drive and not boost it, and just sort of let the motor sort of wear in, piston rings bed in and sort of take place, make sure the motor was all healthy before I gave it some juice, because this last thing you want is accelerate reasonably hard and the motor's not worn in properly and damage your motor. So I wanted to make sure I did things properly, running the motor in. When we came out of lockdown due to COVID, I came down here and obviously finished off the last little things on my car, putting it back together, and then we're allowed to travel out of our region. So I drove from Hamilton to Taupo, and then from Taupo to Rotorua, then Rotorua to Tauranga, and then drove back from Tauranga back to Hamilton. So I did one sort of big wide loop. Took me all afternoon. I was just driving all afternoon and just run the new motor in, just to make sure that the motor was all healthy and all that. Yeah, I did like over 500 k's in one afternoon, just big long trip, so that was quite good. I wanted to do it sooner rather than later, just so I could iron out any teething issues if it had any. Also, I was trying to get my car up to Auckland to get it tuned. I was actually meant to be at a track day hosted by Choice Events Carnival. It was meant to be on like the 1st of October, but then obviously lockdown and that was still happening. So they postponed it to November, the 12th, 13th and 14th, and that way they would still be able to have the event going. But unfortunately, us here in Hamilton, we're still in lockdown, so we weren't allowed to travel out of the region. So I had to miss out on the track day once again because of COVID. Because obviously I didn't make it to the last track day. They've actually just announced that they're sort of going to do a 3-day track event on the 10th, 11th and 12th of December. So yeah, the track event's just going to be like 3 days worth of cruising, so basically 22 hours in total. And cruising is pretty much where you can go out there and have your friends in the car and cruise around the track at your own pace and have a bit of fun, which is pretty much what I do when I go to the track days, just have a bit of fun and enter the cruising sessions. I'm going to enter into this next track day, so I've pretty much got 3 weeks from now to get my car sorted. I apologise now for the talking that I've done in this video. Obviously, yeah, I wanted to give you guys all an update on exactly what I've been experiencing with my car over the last month or so. This video was pretty much just a whole lot of talking, but yeah, thanks for watching. See you in the next one when I basically start to tune the car and yeah, make some more power out of the car and see what potential it has with these new mods that I've put on. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.